Taper time. This is the last video before race day, so if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss my race vlog next week. So after the final big training session of this block to close out week 9, it's the beginning of week 10. I took a couple of days of rest and recovery before thinking about my next run. But then everything was turned upside down by the tragic news that my best friend had taken his own life. I know that's pretty heavy subject matter for a video series about run training. I'm sorry if it's triggering for anyone that's been affected by suicide, but I couldn't not mention it, given what Tom meant to me, how long I've known him, how important he was in my life, and how big an effect that's going to have on me going forward. Not least of all because everything else just seems so insignificant now, and it's really rocked my motivation for anything that tests me, given that this is one of the biggest tests I've ever had to face. I'll talk about all of this stuff in much more depth in the appropriate forums with the great support network that I've got around me, but without meaning to oversimplify it and boil it down too much. Essentially, I've decided that I want to run this race in honour of Tom, in his memory, and I want to commit myself to it in the same way that he committed himself to his creative endeavours. He's someone that I found inspirational in everything he did, and I want to try and turn that inspiration into determination on race day and do what I hope would make him proud. So the first run of the final 2 weeks of this block, the first run of the taper in fact, was an easy 8 kilometres with my friend Sam. This one actually took place on the day I found out that Tom had died, so it served as a bit of a decompression and a chance to talk about him, but also talk about trivial stuff. And although it obviously didn't do anything to take the grief and pain away, it was a reminder that while running won't fix everything, it does help you get into a headspace where you at least feel a little bit more able to start tackling things and processing them. And that run took me to 10 days out from race day, when it's time to really start winding down the intensity and the volume, start getting my body fresh and ready to hit that 21k as fast as I can. So what's my plan for this taper? And how am I going to strike a balance between getting my body fresh but maintaining that race sharpness? Essentially, it would just mean an overwhelming majority of my running being at an easy pace with a few strides peppered in. But before I could take it that easy, there was one last session to get in the bank towards the end of week 10 of this block. So today's run is a bit of a mini session. It's 2 intervals at threshold pace, split by some hill work in between. This type of session is designed to put a little bit of fatigue in the legs in that first block, then incur a lactic build-up during the hill reps, and then get your body used to flushing that lactic build-up while still running at a reasonable pace in that second threshold block. So with that said, time to hit that first threshold block. Well, that's the first threshold block done, and even at just 7.5 minutes, I've got a right sweat on. It's quite hot, muggy and humid today. But also I just don't think I've done enough of that threshold work during this block. Let's see how these hill reps go. Here we go. Nearly forgot, one more threshold block to go.
Later that same evening.
There was a Mr. Exeter wet t-shirt competition, May 2024. I'd undoubtedly win it. Although, probably because I'd be the only entrant, to be honest. That's the second threshold block done. Absolutely dripping with sweat. My average heart rate looked like it was where I wanted it, but there was a lot of spikes in there that were higher than I'd like. But at this point, I just don't care. After the events of this week, that was more about just digging deep and slogging it out when it got hard. even though it was a shorter session, boy, it felt hard, physically and mentally actually. So another good one to bank. Let's get my cool down done now. As with most of my runs, I planned the route badly on this one, so my cool down finished with several laps of the grass outside my house. Then Sunday came round, it was the end of week 10, and it was my final long run of the block. Now I'd put that in bunny ears because it wasn't really a particularly long run in the grand scheme of things, but it was an hour on my feet at a nice easy pace. And actually this one was run in memory of Tom, because his brother, sister and a group of their running club members did a run for Tom back in our hometown in Essex. I couldn't be there for that, sadly, so I ran here at the same time as them and took a moment at the end of that run to sit down and think about him. It was a beautiful day, so I finished the run in the Valley Park near where I live. I tried to channel Tom by finding some beautiful moments amongst the sadness. Tom was really good at finding the beauty in small things that pass most of us by, and this is something he's definitely left me with. So it felt right to sit and do that in the sunshine while thinking about him. So with it now being the end of week 9 of the block, I'll hand you over to future me to run you quickly through what week 10 looks like before we get to that all-important race weekend. So today's just 5 days out from race day. Definitely not the time to put any fatigue in my legs. So I've got a nice short easy run, some strides peppered in the middle. I ran 10-15 second strides where the focus was on relaxed pace and form. Well, as you can probably see, it's tops off for the strides. It's another absolutely glorious day. I suddenly became aware that I need to cycle home in these clothes later. So I didn't really want them drenched in sweat, despite the relatively low volume. I am a sweater. Also, when you live in Britain, you've got to take any opportunity for some vitamin D. Anyway, hopefully those strides will help keep me sharp for race day. I guess we'll find out in 5 days. All of a sudden it was 3 days to race day, so I stepped out of the office for a few easy kilometres in the sunshine with my colleague Cal, followed by a full stretch out in the gym just to keep my legs loose ahead of race weekend. So that's it. The training's done, the taper's complete and the strategy's locked in. All that's left between now and race day is a massage and a shakeout, and then it's time to toe the line. Wish me luck, and I'll see you in the next one.